During World War II, armies did not rely on brute force heating to survive harsh climates. They relied on physics, discipline, and structure. One tent principle quietly determined whether soldiers stayed functional through freezing nights and sweltering days. That same principle is directly applicable today for anyone living in an RV, cabin, or seasonal off-grid shelter. It's not about comfort, it's about controlling energy loss, moisture buildup, and human fatigue across changing seasons. The principle was never about heat, it was about trapped air and controlled volume. World War II tents were designed around one rule: reduce the volume that must be heated and trap air where the body lives. Canvas tents used double layers, liners, and low interior profiles to create dead air space. That trapped air acted as insulation long before modern foams existed. The goal was not to make the tent warm, but to prevent heat from escaping faster than the body could replace it. For RV owners and cabin dwellers, this translates directly. High ceilings, open lofts, and exposed roof lines increase heat loss in winter and heat gain in summer. Soldiers avoided this by lowering sleeping zones and sealing unused vertical space. In practical terms, hanging thermal curtains to lower ceiling height in winter or partitioning unused sections of an RV recreates the same effect. You're shrinking the space your body must defend thermally. World War II manuals emphasize ground loss above almost everything else. Cold earth drains body heat faster than air ever will. Tents used raised floors, straw, wooden duckboards, or layered blankets under sleeping areas. This principle is often ignored in modern small space living, where folks focus on wall insulation and heaters. In an RV, insulating the floor with removable foam panels or heavy rugs during winter months follows the same logic. In cabins, elevating beds even just a few inches off the floor reduces conductive heat loss. This isn't about comfort, folks. It's about preventing overnight energy drain that can lead to exhaustion and illness over time. Soldiers who ignored ground insulation, well, they failed in the field. The same rule applies now. World War II tents were never airtight. Controlled ventilation prevented condensation, mold, and frost buildup inside the shelter. Moisture was considered just as dangerous as cold. Breath, cooking, and wet clothing can rapidly increase humidity, which then robs heat and degrades materials. Modern RVs and cabins often repeat the same mistakes soldiers were warned against by sealing everything tight. The solution used back then still applies today. Create intentional airflow paths that move moisture out without stripping away heat. In winter, this means cracking vents near the roof while keeping sleeping zones insulated below. In summer, it means cross-ventilation that moves air through shaded openings, rather than relying on mechanical cooling alone. During World War II, tents were designed with stoves positioned centrally. This wasn't done for comfort, but rather for even heat distribution. The idea was to let the heat rise naturally, while sleeping areas were strategically arranged to intercept that warmth without direct exposure. You see, random heat placement led to cold zones, condensation, and a whole lot of fuel waste. Now, when it comes to a cabin, placing a stove near the center instead of against an exterior wall can improve efficiency dramatically. In an RV, redirecting heat flow with reflective barriers or circulation fans follows the same principle. Back in the day, soldiers understood that uneven heat creates weak points. Modern dwellers, well, they should treat their heat source as part of a system, not just an appliance. Canvas was not thick, but it worked because layers created separation. Liners, fly sheets, and inner walls prevented direct exposure to wind and moisture. This layered approach allowed rapid adaptation to seasons without rebuilding shelters. Applying this today means using removable layers rather than permanent fixes. Thermal curtains, insulated window covers, and seasonal wall hangings allow an RV or cabin to shift behavior across the year. In summer, layers block radiant heat. In winter, they trap warmth. Soldiers did not redesign tents every season. They adjusted layers. World War II sleeping layouts prioritized warmth retention. Bodies were positioned away from walls, insulated from ground contact, and grouped when necessary to conserve heat. Personal space was secondary to thermal efficiency. For modern dwellers, this means moving beds away from exterior walls in winter and avoiding direct contact with cold surfaces. In small cabins, even shifting a bed 1 foot inward can reduce heat loss significantly. The principle is simple and proven. Where the body rests matters more than where furniture looks good. What World War II engineers understood was that shelter is an energy system. Heat, moisture, airflow, and human presence interact constantly. RV owners and cabin dwellers who struggle through seasons often fight symptoms instead of structure. Space heaters, air conditioners, and dehumidifiers cannot compensate for poor layout and uncontrolled volume. Applying this principle today does not require reenacting history. It requires respecting it. Reduce volume, trap air, insulate from the ground, ventilate intentionally, layer intelligently, and position heat and bodies with purpose. These were not suggestions, they were survival requirements. Seasonal living is not about enduring discomfort. It is about preserving energy, materials, and mental clarity over months, not nights. World War II tents were designed for extended use under stress. That same thinking benefits anyone living off-grid, traveling full-time, or maintaining a remote cabin. If this guide gave you something new to think about, subscribe to Living Through the Seasons for more deep, practical history applied to real modern living. Share this with someone who lives small and struggles seasonally. These principles kept people alive when failure was not an option, and they still work today.